Before we get started, please understand that Valve did not pay for the airfare or lodging for this trip, and it would not have been possible without the sponsors. Specifically for today, Trade Skins Fast. Check out their website down in the description below if you want to be able to trade some of the skins for something else. The website is very fast, as the name implies. All you have to do is put your skins into the inventory on the website, and you can immediately get back other items in the Trade Skins Fast inventory instantly. So without further ado, here are two people from the Counter-Strike Global Offensive team answering questions about gambling when we begin. Now, you have to keep in mind that it was not just me in the room. 7 total press members were invited to this meeting, and I was only one of them. So whenever somebody else asks a question, I will just be writing out a paraphrased version of it and putting it over the screen.
I think our response is similar to what we've already sort of talked about in the press, which is, it's something that we don't. It violates our terms of service, and as we become aware of it, we shut those things down.
I think that's incredibly important in all of our products to move forward. We look at, we're trying to reward value creation in every way that we can, whether that's people playing the game with each other or building updates for each other, right? And so to do that, it requires to have assets that can move around within the economy, from people who have them to people who want them. And like Dave says, there could be unintended side effects to that then we have to go deal with. But our goal is for people playing our games to feel rewarded in a variety of ways.
Yeah, we're trying to find as many ways as we can that the community can sort of feedback on itself, put its interest in the game directly into the game. So, we have a bunch of different systems in Counter-Strike specifically, ways where the community can express the types of designs they're interested in at any given moment, the types of images and so on. Experiences, and so whether it's maps or stickers or weapon skins, the community is driving the conversation about what types of stuff they'd like to see in the game, and that's one of the ways that the game advances. So, the future is trying to find more ways that the community can express itself through the game.
Isn't part of that Source 2? Well, yeah. So Source 2, which is in CS:GO's future, probably every Valve's product's future that isn't already Source 2, is easier content creation, and so that is the long-term vision. The short-term vision is follow the user and the community along their interests. And
I think it would be helpful for us to kind of define what we mean by value creation, because there's people making nice skins or skins inside of CS:GO. Right. There's professional players who are playing, and there's just individual users who are playing with other people. All of those count as value creation. And we look at all of those different things and try to build systems that reward that value correctly. So in DOTA's case, professional players should be rewarded for the value that they create in a very unique way with huge audiences. So you have things like the Compendia in DOTA that users fundamentally control the prize pool for the biggest event of the year. That happens indirectly in all of our products fundamentally, right? Because we're funding a bunch of different events throughout the year. So it's like what Brian says, we're always looking at what are the cool things that our community is doing, and how is it that, in the same way that Steam takes the work product of developers and puts that with customers, inside of our games we're trying to do the same thing. What are people doing inside of our community that's really cool? How can we have them have a relationship with the community around that stuff? It's one of those things I think is probably a little difficult for us to predict, because you kind of, the community is a pretty powerful machine for doing things. It's kind of hard to predict. It's like, what's the internet going to be like in a couple of years? I don't know, but you better have a plan for being able to be fairly agile in creating a system so that their value goes rewarded, because you want that valuable thing to keep happening.
Obviously, you want to promote the in-game economies as much as possible, so far as even hiring economists to be able to, help out with the ways that you do that. So the issue right now seems to be the general use of the Steam API for websites that are using it for nefarious purposes. However, it seems like the logical next step would be completely shutting down the API if, the Washington thing gets bad. what is Valve's opinion on things that are non-gambling websites? Like websites that are used to sell the skins, websites that are used to trade the skins on separate fronts? What is the stance on sites that are not using it for gambling purposes, but using it for other purposes?
Well, none of them actually use our API. to do this.
Be able to log in and use the player inventories on their own website.
I mean, you can do that without logging in.
Oh, okay. All right.
So you don't need any API to do any of this stuff. I guess we don't really fundamentally have an opinion on other uses that people have for their inventories. I don't know. We got to talk about that.
All right.
We don't know. We don't have any data to support that.
Yeah, but yeah.
So, I don't know.
The only data that we really have is that the popularity of tournaments in Counter-Strike, the viewership of tournaments, has always followed the growth of the game in terms of the player base at large. And that growth in the player base typically comes either after the game has been on sale, or after we've added some features to the game that make the game a stickier experience. So if you look at the growth of CS:GO over the past couple of years, most of it actually starts just before we released the economy in the game. It started with matchmaking and the ability to just find other people to play with more easily. So even though the player numbers at that time were a little bit considerably lower than they are right now, that's when you see all of our retention statistics start going way up. Everyone's playing this mode and they're sticking around. So from that point on, every time the game is on sale or every time people are paying attention to Counter-Strike, the player base would grow and it would stay large. I mean, we're up to around 11 million monthly unique players a month at this point. And so the viewership of the CS:GO majors scaled with the growth of the game. So it's hard to say whether some other factor outside of the game's growth has had an impact on viewership of tournaments or even the playing of the game, but all we can really say for certain is that the things we're doing in the game seem to make it bigger, and that seems to drive all of the external factors.
All this is the same for DOTA.
Yeah.
I mean, the inflections in the popularity are pretty obvious, and they're related to sales or updates or events that happen. So that's the obvious thing that we see.
Yeah. And so when we think about future directions for the game, that's all we really focus on, because that seems like the only thing that we can control that makes the experience better for everybody.
Again, I don't really know how to measure that.
Again, the only things that we can measure
More people are playing the game for longer.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing that we look at.
Okay, so in the recent ESEA mini documentary that you guys put out, so there was a little period of time where they had some shots of the CS:GO room in particular, with Mr. Cliff playing or mapping, but the mapping appeared to be retail dust, and he also had an image opened up that appeared to be the thing that inspired Mirage. Now, right now there seems to be some leaking going on about a remake for Dust and Dust 2. Mm-hmm. However, it seemed as though you guys were teasing that just a little bit. Like maybe that was just a little bit one of those Valve teases that you do. But what could you tell me about the next operation? What could you tell me about possibly or the remakes to Dust that it seems like we're going to get?
So Dust 2 is being reworked.
Okay.
I think that's not a secret.
Well, no.
But I'll confirm it. So Dust 2 is being reworked. We don't have a timeline for it. So we don't know when it'll be ready. We don't know if it'll be ready for the next operation. But in addition to that, we're working on the next operation.
Okay, so those are two completely different. It's not going to be like Nuke and Wildfire again.
Right.
Okay.
So when those even in the case of Nuke, it happened to be ready around the same time as Wildfire, which is why those came together. But Inferno, for example, was just available.
Yeah, it was
whenever
beta
it was available.
tested.
So we tend not to sit on content that is ready for people to experience if it's ready to go.
We will group content if it's ready, but otherwise.
Cool.
And the goal is to update both gameplay and the visuals of the map. This is the most popular map in Counter-Strike, but it's also kind of the oldest looking map in Counter-Strike. So so it's kind of a low bar.
So are you saying you're going to be changing the pathways?
It's going to be, it's actually a moon base.
Careful.
Who knows?
They're going to write that down.
We don't have.
The goal is to fix the problems and to make it look like it belongs with the rest of the product.
Well, that's awesome, but what do you view as the problems?
The community has talked a lot about some of the staleness of the gameplay because the layout obviously has not changed much, and the map doesn't provide a lot of opportunities for people to produce new plays and so on. It's so early into the process that it's really hard to identify a specific core problem.
Okay, so you're pretty early on in doing that.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fine.
It's so early. They have a structure. It sounds very interesting. It's an experiment. And that's different from what the current state of the CS:GO ecosystem is. We have kind of a light touch when it comes to Counter-Strike's tournament scene. We get involved with the majors and some of the qualifiers leading up to that, but we don't tend to get involved outside of that context. But I think we just don't have enough information or enough data yet to say whether one approach is better than another.
Well, we're excited to see what they do because it's always great when there is one more entity running experiments. Because if they have a bunch of successes, then we'll look at those.
Well, I mean,
and we'll
it's also
learn.
just a good game.
Well, we also play
games.
it.
I think it's critically important for our products for the people that are actually building things to be as close to customers as possible. We feel like it's been successful in a bunch of areas. Has trade-offs, but generally we want the person who's going to have to make Dust 2 better have to be the person to defend those decisions to the community. And that kind of applies to everything. We don't think that adding a person in the middle of that process is going to, end with, like, we would much rather fix the problem and tell them it's fixed rather than have somebody saying, hey, we're working on it. Okay. It could be that we kind of, to a fault, make a mistake there where the person who's working on the fix probably should say, hey, we're aware of it. And we've made this mistake often, and that's probably the trade-off with kind of the design of our system. We think we're able to fix problems much more quickly. We think we're able to do invention much more efficiently and take risks in interesting ways, just given how close to the metal we want everyone to be. Everyone on the team is responsible for every single thing about the product all the time. Okay. And so there isn't somebody who's proxying a bunch of customer information. Right. Because if all of us go and read, CSGO subreddit, we probably all get different things out of it that are really actionable. Like, hey, we should go work on this thing, and this would be really easy for me to go fix. And people work that way all the time on products at Valve. Having someone else say, hey, I went and took a look at what the community's saying, and they're saying they'd like for you to do these things. We actually just think that list that they produce would often be the wrong one. You need actually the expertise in being a level designer, being an engineer, or... And
you need to see the conversation as it develops about that issue, not have someone summarize it in a single sentence.
I mean, it's probably the worst kept secret that we'll often look at customers talking about a specific issue, and they'll come up with the solution before we have, and we'll be like, that is the right solution. We'll just implement it. That person will be like, wow, I guessed exactly what Valve was going to do. It's like, no, you told us exactly what to do. And so, like, that's like the philosophical approach to why we do what we do. That doesn't excuse, like, why are the servers down? I mean,
the frustrating thing about the servers being down was that they were down.
Yeah.
It may have helped some people if we would have said something, but fundamentally, the core problem, the primary concern is how to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Well, down for as long as they were.
20 hours.
Yeah, I mean, it's bad.
Yeah.
Or down for 20 hours.
Just and real quick.
New Year's Eve.
Just sort of a
But perfect storm.
catastrophic perfect storm of things that have been adjusted since.
Yeah.
I think we're broadly using the term data like...
That is data.
Yeah, I mean, reading through forum threads, reading the email that we get, that's data also. And
sometimes the conversation that the community has is sort of like the first filter of what interesting opportunities there might be. The community might say, I think X happens a lot because I've experienced this thing. We can go to the data that we collect in the game to confirm whether or not that's actually happening as often as
if the quantitative data contradicts what they're saying, then
we need to understand why they're having that experience. But the course of action is obviously different than if the data had confirmed what their
conversations are a lot better at giving you really acute short-term data. Like when you screw something up really badly instantly.
Yes.
That makes sense. I mean, it's like a thing that I'm sure everyone here knows exactly what it looks like. Like when we make a mistake, we know really fast. We don't need to consult the database.
Gabe is often the kind of the canary in the coal mine. He immediately knows.
Gabe's inbox is another actual good source of data. Like if he's getting a ton of email about a specific issue, it's probably
a real issue.
But that comes in both. So you can have global optimization issues that we're pretty data-driven about. Like the game is slower for everyone on every type of hardware, but more hardware-specific optimization issues, the community can be super useful at getting us that data.
Right. And that thread is a lot of here is my 10-year-old PC and it gets 120.
It's fair.
So
expect to have
there's
144 consistently, right? So it's
and people with really old, and they're having the GPU versus CPU conversation in there, and it's back and forth. So we're always paying attention to perf, and we go through cycles where we decide, okay, now might be a good time. I mean, it's just ongoing work, and it's an ongoing conversation, and there are different customer types who are impacted differently at different times.
So I guess this question works for both TF2 and CSGO, but they're technically two different questions. What do you view on like the community-driven type projects, like recently, and it's now very popular, Classic Offensive by Zool Smith, or Team Fortress 2 Classic by Ibo Harz and 1/4 and all of them? Are you guys aware of them? Do you guys pay attention to those at all? And do you see any value in the types of third-party like mods that stem from the community?
I am aware of Classic Offensive. I haven't played it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we think it's awesome that they're finding new ways to create experiences that they enjoy.
Well, then I have a question exactly from Zool himself. Right now it seems as though, even though Counter-Strike is based on the idea of being one of the most popular modifications of all time, CSGO is a very walled-off kind of piece of software, and it's very difficult to be able to mod stuff. You can do things like insert custom models, and you can change the weapon stats, and you can play on certain maps, but the HUD is completely walled off. You can't change the main menu at all. So what is the CS team's opinion on third-party modding? Will we ever see maybe a version of the game that's actually modelable in a full way?
So I don't know. We follow users' interests. And early on when we added matchmaking, users have told us that they really like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we have invested more and more in a safe, consistent experience. And that goes with the items. They tell us they really like the ones that we ship, so we keep doing that.
I mean, the first step would be the product being on Source 2, because that's kind of where all of our content development is heading anyways. So
Source 2 is still like first focus kind of thing.
If you're going to go down the path of user extensibility, you would start there, because that was kind of the goal, which we think we did pretty well at, was building a set of tools for developers to be able to create content much more efficiently.
So like the Onion
in everything, all that is just much better.
The Unreal and Unity scares that were going on there for a little bit, like VR team pretty much working in Unity, but for a reasonable thing, but like also Unreal being such this big thing. Valve is going to stick with their own proprietary engine, and you don't think that they're going to move over to Unreal or Unity for a full game product?
I think we'll probably use Source 2.
And thank you very much for watching. And once again, this entire trip would have not been possible if it wasn't for Trade Skins Fast. Check out their website down in the description below if you want to be able to trade your crappy skins for something really good. You can do that instantly, and it just works. I really recommend checking the website out down in the description below. Thank you very much for watching, guys. This whole experience has been insane. I want to know if you guys would be interested in watching a video of me talking about exactly how we got to this point, talking about how the interview came to be and exactly what it was like being there. I might make a video of that sort. And yeah, so tomorrow we're going to be uploading the third part of this multi-part series, which is the VR team. And yes, Gabe Newell participated a lot for this next interview. That'll be up later tonight because I was a little late with getting this one out. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Tyler McVicker. This is Valve News Network. Have a good day. Adios.